Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cameras and Coffee and Steinbeck's junk, as usual. Yes, I know, you're so obnoxious. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, give or take, I don't remember exactly, when Sophia Carey, who's a YouTuber I've recently subscribed to this year, released a video about an expensive film mistake that she made where she had set her RB67 shutter to the wrong speed and took time exposures for everything. It got me to thinking about what is my biggest, most expensive film mistake. And this was an expensive lesson, so it is not one that leaves my mind very frequently. When I started shooting 4x5, I began on an anniversary graphic, and it was pretty forgiving. What I would do is I'd go down to Tap Plastics. I lived in California at the time. I'd go down to Tap Plastics, and they sold 4x4, 4-inch by 4-inch pieces of plastic that were used as samples that people could take. Also, the perfect size to fit inside of an anniversary graphics lens board holder. So I'd get 2 of these in matte black with a texture on them, or if they only had glossy, I'd rough them up with some 60 grit sandpaper. And then I'd take 2 of them and I'd glue them together, and I'd drill a hole through them for the lens I was using. And, hey, knock it off, Steinbeck, knock it off. And that was perfect. They were light proof in that arrangement, and they fit very well. When we moved out here, I had to get some lens boards, so I had some laser cut out of walnut hardwood. It was cheap, it fit perfectly, and it worked really well. Perfectly, actually. So when I got rid of the anniversary graphic and upgraded to the Ghibellini, I just got the exact same walnut hardwood lens boards, and they looked exactly like this. And let me show you up close what this looks like. There we go. You might be able to see there about what it looks like. This is a 113 by 113 millimeter lens board. So, I mean, very attractive, absolutely attractive lens board. And I used those with the Ghibellini for a few months. In fact, this was from that very first batch of lens boards. And I polyurethaned them a little bit, gave them a nice satin finish on the outside facing side, and they worked just fine. And didn't even occur to me to think that I was only using ortho film, because I figured I would want to use something inexpensive to learn the new camera. And so everything went great. Ortho film was great. All the results came back very sharp, very nice. And so I bought a 10-pack of Ektar 4x5, a 10-pack of Portra 400, and a 10-pack of Ektachrome 100. I think they were all 10 packs, and might have been a 20-pack of the Ektachrome. And I went out and shot fall colors with them. Shot 25 4x5 fall colors with those, and get a phone call from my lab, and it's Laz, and he says, "Hey man, all of your 4x5s are completely cooked." He said they are all super blue. The negatives are very, very blue. He said they're so dense we can't even scan them. I said, "Can you scan a handful and let me see what they look like?" And he did, and they came over, and the negatives were super blue, and the images were super, super red. Like, what the heck? Did I get bad film? No, I didn't get bad film, because the margins around the 4x5 frame holders were just fine. You could see very, very clearly the shape of the 4x5 holder on the negatives, which means it was a problem during exposure, not with the film. So I got to thinking, like, I actually used a meter. I don't usually use a light meter when I shoot 4x5. I look at a scene and think, yeah, cool, that sounds like a good setting, let's go with that. I was actually metering just because I was learning and working out bellows extensions and things like that I wanted to be able to learn to do in my head. And so I said to him, "I'll tell you what, I got 5 more whatever was left of the 30 that I had loaded up, and or 6 more. I think it was 24 I sent and 6 that I had left. I said, let me see what I'm doing wrong. I identified 2 places where there could be an issue: my exposure and the act of taking the exposure, or the act of loading and unloading the film. And just 4x5, I have one of those big loading tents, but it's kind of a pain to use if I'm loading up 30 film backs. So when I have a bulk like that, a lot of those, I'll take them into the closet or the bathroom or something, put a towel under the door and go for it. And usually you can see a little bit of light creeping in around the door frame, even in the evenings, but it's not ever been enough to fog the film. Certainly not like this stuff came back. Cooked was absolutely the right word. So what I did was I took the next 4 sheets of film, or 6 sheets of film, and I went and I just used them normally like I had for the previous shoot. But this time I transferred them into the dark bag to send to old school in the dark bag, not in the closet or the bathroom. And they came back exactly the same. When I looked at the negatives that came back, the slides were completely white. There was nothing on them, just transparent. And then the Ektar was what really told me what was going on. Because again, the portrait was cooked, but the Ektar, there was a little bit of image visible. The negatives were super, super blue to the eye, and the scans were red. And the ortho film was fine, because ortho film doesn't see red light. And the light that passes through walnut hardwood that is just not quite light proof takes a red tint that the ortho film can't see. And that's what had happened. I had been using ortho film with these lens boards, and there was no issue because the ortho film couldn't see the light that was coming through the lens boards. So 3 packs of film is like, I forget exactly, I want to say that was about 150. No, it was more than that. I feel like it was $75 a pack, give or take. So it was in the range of 150 to 200 bucks for the film. Developing is $15 a sheet times 30, that's $450. It was around a $600 to $700 mistake, which I have not forgotten. So when I get a lens board, I'll still use the same wood material, or sometimes I'll get a fancy MDF. Here's one of the fancy MDFs that I use, and definitely love that pattern. Here's another one of the fancy MDFs that I use, because if you're going to have a lens board, it might as well look super fancy, right? Like, have it look neat. Silver and plain black, kind of boring. The ones that I got today, birch plywood. I was thinking about polyurethaning or staining them. I don't think I'm going to do that right yet. So you might be asking, how am I doing this now? Like, have I not learned my lesson? Am I a numpty nuts? No. Here's the thing. So with the Intrepid, when I start using that, I got all metal lens boards, and it was really expensive. And with the Ghibellini, if I ordered metal lens boards from Ghibellini, it would also be super expensive, especially since I use a lot of strange lens board hole sizes. So if I order lens boards that are wood, it's a whole lot cheaper. And then to make them light proof, here's one that I just mounted up today. It's a Goer's 12-inch f/5.5 Celor lens, which is an 8x10 portrait lens. What I'll do is I'll take the lens board and then I'll put Plyobond on the back of the lens board and then put it on some tin foil. Tin foil's light proof. Cut around the outsides, or put on the black felt and then cut around the outsides, and then cut the hole out, mount the lens, and we are good to go. So I'll show you that up close, what that looks like. So here's the Celor lens mounted on the lens board. And on the back, Can make out the detail here with the tin foil peeking out through the edge here. Oops, let me get that back in frame. And then the black felt here. So that seems like a lot of work, right? I mean, not really. It's about 5-6 minutes of work. Definitely more worth the time than buying the lens boards. Plus, as an advantage, I get really neat looking lens boards. Either in, this is again one of the original walnut ones, or in the herringbone MDF, which is a very striking lens board. I really like that. Or the Paisley I use to mount the Pentax. And so at any rate, with this one, I just used tape instead of felt to light proof it because it's a significantly more robust material. Off track there. But that gives me the ability to have interesting lens boards, and the tin foil's light proof, and then the felt is incredibly important. And the reason is because film doesn't absorb 100% of the light that reaches it. If it did, Vanta Black wouldn't exist. There would have been no reason to invent it because we would have had a material that does what it does for centuries. Film absorbs a very small percentage of the light that reaches it. That's why you can see film and it's not black and featureless, right? Like the void. So you have your lens, right? And then you have your film plane or imaging media right here. The light passes through the lens and it reaches the film, and then a good amount of it bounces off of the film. It's scattered in every direction away from the film. So some of that will go back out through the lens, a very little amount of that. Most of it will bounce into the camera. And then that's why if bellows cameras, they have the bellows because those are light, in addition to letting it collapse, that's a light baffle. The light bounces off the film, reaches some of the bellows. It's black on the inside. Most of it gets absorbed, but that which doesn't is then reflected into a different direction, and then it just bounces around until enough of it's absorbed that it's harmless. That's why telephoto lenses and telescopes and macro lenses tend to have light baffles inside of them, because if they don't, you'll get hot spots in the center of the frame that are caused by internal reflections bouncing off the film and then back into a spot, or the light cone bouncing out, reaching this unbaffled part of the film, and then the majority of that light bouncing, converging in the middle of the image. And it's a bright spot where there's more light that reaches it, and it's also kind of featureless because it's also unfocused light. So the importance of the felt on the back of the lens board is that light which bounces off of the film media back to the lens, most of it's absorbed. If you just had the tin foil right here, it would be a mirror and it would just reflect all of that light back onto the film media, which would cause you to have a reduction in contrast and sharpness. So, and this is just standard Dick Blick stick-it felt. It's what I use for all of my felts and like the backs of these things, light seal materials. Basically, any camera repair that needs felt, I use that material. They didn't sponsor this video. I just happen to really, really love the stuff. It's fantastic. If you have black felt that's used for lining boxes, like if you do woodworking at home, the adhesive backed will work perfectly. That's very similar stuff. Tends to be more stretchy than the Dick Blick felt. So at any rate, then it's just a matter of getting the board cut down to size and tin foiled and felted. So yeah, it takes a few extra minutes. You can't just open up the box, slap a lens on. But if you're doing things like having a 75.7 millimeter or whatever size this is, Dallmeyer Pentax that you want to use on your 4x5 or 8x10 camera, or if you need to have a Comper 3 hole drilled into a lens board, or a Volute 3 hole drilled into your lens board, or other strange sizes. I have an Alphax shutter that came in the other day on a 159 millimeter Wollensak. those are bizarre sizes that you can't just go to one of the companies that's making lens boards today and say, hey, I need a Copal 1. It's not the same size. So, so getting your own made is an important thing, and I learned the hard way just how variable the light proofness of wood is, and also then how to make it light proof. So for those of you who are interested in moving into 4x5 or large format of any sort where you're going to be using a lens board, that would be, I hope you learn from my $700-ish mistake to be very selective about your lens boards, or if you're going to make your own, how to light proof them with some tin foil and some black felt. Looks kind of janky from the back, but realistically, no one's going to judge you by how janky the back of your camera's lens board looks. And if they do, they're not someone you necessarily need to do business with anyway. So that is it for today, my most expensive photography mistake. And I hope that you guys have an opportunity to not make that mistake with your photography. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next Cameras and Coffee.